Welcome to the Trellix Spotlight series. My name is Nick, and I will be your host. In today's session, we'll meet Trellix Hyperautomation, a true no-code tool for automated security workflows. This webinar will be recorded. If you prefer not to participate in the recorded session, please feel free to disconnect at this time. A link to today's recorded presentation will be emailed to all registered attendees. This webinar is a brief overview covering common use cases and scenarios regarding this topic. It is not intended to be all-encompassing. If assistance is needed, please contact Trellix Technical Support. If you have questions during the webinar, please type them in the Q&A window. This webinar may run longer or shorter based on your participation, and we recommend asking as many questions as you can to make the most of this series. If the Q&A window is not displayed, click the tab at the bottom of your session window and click on the Q&A icon. We will answer the questions during the final section of this webinar. If you experience any audio issues during the webcast, please drop and attempt to reconnect. Our first speaker today is Grant McDonald. Grant has over 17 years of experience working in cybersecurity across a range of technologies including endpoint, server security, cloud, and data security. At Trellix, he is focused on security operations and the Trellix platform. When he isn't writing, speaking, or increasing cybersecurity awareness, he enjoys restoring old cars, skiing, and watching the latest entertainment from a galaxy far, far away. Our second speaker today is Shreya Mathur. Shreya is a product manager at Trellix, specializing in SecOps products with a strong focus on hyperautomation and integrating automation capabilities across Trellix solutions. Before joining Trellix, she worked as a senior product manager at a cybersecurity startup and began her career as a data engineer in the IT industry before moving into product management. She holds an MBA in Information Security and a Bachelor of Technology in Computer Science, providing her with a solid technical foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, Grant and Shreya.
All right, thanks, Nick. Appreciate the introduction. Just a quick level set with the agenda for our call today. So we're going to talk about hyperautomation. This is a new capability that Trellix is bringing to market. We're going to talk a little bit about what that is, and then we're going to tell you a little bit about what our hyperautomation solution, Trellix Hyperautomation, is and how it works. And then Shreya will be doing a demo so that you can actually see what it looks like, what the analyst experience looks like, and some of the capabilities that it will allow you to do and perform as an analyst. So some of you may be familiar with things like SOAR or other automation tools. So if you're not familiar with the term of what hyperautomation is, this is a good working definition provided by Gartner. And the notable differences are hyperautomation has more to do about trying to bring together a IT processes, business processes, a collection of those things, kind of uniting the workflows rather than just automating in one area here or there. It's trying to drive a unified workflow across tools, platforms, bringing in some more advanced things like AI, but probably one of the bigger differences is the emphasis on low code or no code tools. So instead of being really heavily dependent on coding expertise or developers to build it, it's more UI driven. So that's kind of, if I were to summarize it, the things I would focus on to help you kind of understand what hyperautomation is. A little bit on the differences in particular, because some of you may be using some SOAR solutions and wonder, okay, so what are the differences? Why would I want hyperautomation over SOAR? And like we talked about just a second ago, the biggest reason being that a lot of SOAR solutions, to get them up and running, to get them tuned and tailored for you, you've got to have somebody in-house who has that coding expertise. And that's either going to mean that you're going to have to recruit and find somebody, build somebody into that expert level of coding to be able to do that, or you're going to have to temporarily hire somebody or use a service to do that. So with hyperautomation, it's very much a low code, no code solution. Everything is UI driven, drag and drop. There's not a need for a lot of that specialized expertise in things like Python, for example. While SOAR solutions do have automation built into them, sometimes they're restricted in just how far they can go, where hyperautomation is less bound by those tools or environments. It can go work across them, integrate across the data through them, and then unite a workflow for somebody without having to pivot back and forth and apply them in multiple places. The AI sometimes is a little bit more limited in SOAR, mostly due to the integration abilities of AI with existing SOAR platforms, whereas Hyperautomation solutions generally allow more of that integration natively and a little bit more deeper so that you can apply it across your workflows rather than, again, kind of that segmented environment approach. And with SOAR solutions, sometimes it's a little bit harder to integrate, whereas hyperautomation, generally speaking, there's a broader intake. The integrations are more simple. In a lot of cases, you can even use hyperautomation solutions to integrate products themselves. So again, kind of another removal of that coding expertise or that additional level of expertise that you might need to get value out of a SOAR solution. And then the last one there has to do with value. SOAR solutions typically take a little bit longer to get going with. The ramp up period and the implementation can look different for people, but for the most part, it's a longer tail ramp up, and the ongoing maintenance is usually higher, whereas you've got a little bit more of a out of the box experience with something like hyperautomation in several areas, and the maintenance is generally lower based on the deployment options that you have available to you. And then also, again, you don't need that in-house expertise, so you're not carrying that burden as well. So here's just a quick shot at what Trellix Hyperautomation is and a kind of a slight preview of what it looks like. So what it provides is a workspace for teams. We do say fusion teams because we have in mind the idea of teams across those multiple environments. So it's not just IT process, it's business IT processes, but unified security workflows. And the workflow builder is very much UI driven, point and click. It's a drag and drop sort of format. So you can kind of see a little bit of that to the right. Trey will show you a little bit better example than this in a second. And the integration, again, as we said, this is one of the differences between hyperautomation and SOAR is you can integrate pretty much anything that has an API or provides an API. There's some pre-built integrations, and we are ongoing basis going to add more of those. So you'll get more and more of those over time, not just the ones that will roll out at launch. And because it's designed for this Fusion team experience, it has this built-in user and roles capabilities so that you can have role-based access. So an admin can do one thing, you could delegate different users, and they can have their own permissions. The initial availability of the Trellix Hyperautomation solution will be within Helix. And if you're not familiar with Helix, Helix is our SecOps solution, our security operations solution. Helix is used to integrate a lot of the Trellix platform into correlated detections, unifying the responses across our tools, but also third-party tools. And it will be added to Helix, so you'll be able to do and take some actions from within Helix using hyperautomation. So some of the use cases, if you're asking yourself, well, how do I use it? Some of the things that you can do with hyperautomation is you can add threat intelligence enrichment. So say a detection gets surfaced, you can automatically draw from resources to tell you more about that threat, might help you identify it, and any intel that may be out there that can help inform your response. You can, of course, set automated actions to happen. So an incident happens, you can kind of do an if-then sort of approach that if this happens, this is the action I want to take. So you can contain, a system or a threat more rapidly that way, kind of more of a machine speed response. You can create tickets within SIMs, ticketing systems. So there's integration working there with the things that you already have to kind of unify more of your SecOps. And then you can also set up to interact with things like your asset and configuration management. So you can kind of keep an eye on always having the best configuration in place and helping to prevent things like drift. So with that, I will turn it over to Shreya, who will walk you through a demo and kind of give you a little bit of an experience on what the end-to-end would look like on a common threat and how a SecOps analyst would utilize hyperautomation.
Thank you, Grant. I'll take it from here. Hi, everyone. Today, I'll be walking you through our hyperautomation product and giving you a demo of how it works. I'll show you how workflows are built inside the product, and then I'll also cover how we have integrated hyperautomation and Helix. Finally, we'll take a use case example to demonstrate it in action. What you see on the screen is the Trellix Hyperautomation. If I navigate here to the workflows, this is basically the menu option where you can find all the workflows that are pre-built or the workflows that the analyst has built. Let's take an example. So on the left-hand side, top corner, you will see a panel with different building blocks. We call it steps. These steps form the core of workflow automation. They include things like loop, break, condition, HTTP, and sub workflows. Sub workflows are used for reusability purposes. Together, they allow to design a complex automation logic in a simple drag and drop manner without writing codes. The most versatile operator is the HTTP operator. It allows you to connect with practically any application that exposes an API. So whether the integration exists out of the box or not, users can extend automation by leveraging APIs. Alongside the operators, you can see the actions. These actions are basically out-of-the-box integrations with the third-party application. It integrates with native integrations of Trellix like Helix, HX, EDR, ETP, and many more. And these automation coverages actions allows users to directly connect to systems and take response measures. For example, disabling a user in Active Directory, blocking an API in the firewall, or isolating an endpoint in EDR. Once the operators and steps are added into the workflow, there's another important thing that you can do in the workflow is that defining the triggers for the workflow. The triggers are basically defined that when and how the workflow is going to get executed. There are three different types of triggers. First is custom, which is an event-based trigger where the workflow is invoked as soon as an event occurs in an integration. Then there is manual execution. Manual execution is when the user is building the workflow, they can choose to select the manual execution and run it on demand. And third is the scheduled workflows, where workflows are run automatically on predefined intervals. These workflows can be built automatically, pick the values directly from the alerts, pass them as inputs to the action, and then execute it with just a click, or even automatically based on the trigger you define, reducing mean time to respond from minutes to hours or down to seconds. So this is what the canvas looks like. Now, I'll show you how this comes together inside Helix. With our latest version of Helix, we have embedded hyperautomation capabilities directly into Helix. This provides analysts with built-in response capabilities, making alert management, remediation, and response much faster without even leaving the Helix interface. If you look at the Helix mega menu, you will notice two new options have been added, workflows and workspaces. If I click on the workflows give the analyst the ability to view, create, and manage the workflows with other options of viewing whether the status of the workflow is enabled, disabled, or is it configured or not. Users can click on the workflows and that navigates them to the hyperautomation product in the new tab. And this will open the workflow just how I've shown you a couple of minutes ago. When I navigate back to Helix, you will see another menu option of workspaces. Workspaces is basically all the execution logs of the workflows that have been executed from within Helix, either via a scheduled automation or manual trigger or from within an alert. Users can go and revisit these logs in case they want to troubleshoot the workflow executions. Apart from this, the users will also have the capability to execute these workflows from within an alert. Inside the alert, user will see a respond tab where the users can go and configure the workflows. They can either execute the out-of-the-box suggested workflows, or they can add in workflow through the listing, configure it, and execute it. User will see the options of passing the parameters on which the workflow needs to be executed. After passing the parameter, they can either save or they can choose to execute the workflow then and there. Additionally, to manage the integrations of hyperautomation, we have added the out-of-the-box integrations of hyperautomation within the integration hub module of Helix itself. The user will have the capability to go to the new integrations and select the respond integrations. And that's where they will be able to see all the integrations that are supported out of the box for automation. We support a few integrations out of the box, but with the capability of custom integrations, user can build their own integrations and use the HTTP operator to build the workflow, to basically integrate with any application which supports APIs. Now, I will take you to the workflow and I will talk about a specific use case, how it is built and how it reduces the effort for an analyst. Let's take this example of alert automated remediation. What you see here is basically the workflow with several steps. First is, for this demo, I've kept the trigger as the manual. When it comes into the action, then it will be set as a trigger, which will be done by the alert itself. Now, the first block of this automation is about enrichment, where if an alert passes a file hash through it in the workflow, then it will, in the first block, you will see that we are going to do enrichment on the file hash and get the analysis or the reputation of that file hash using several different applications, that is Trellix IVX or VirusTotal. Now, this entire block can be made as a sub workflow so that it becomes reusable in different workflows. Once the enrichment is done, then the conditional operator is used, which lets the user decide whether they want to proceed ahead only if the hash is malicious. So the logic is written in such a way that if it is malicious, then follow, else exit the workflow. Further, we go ahead and we acquire the file from asset using the Trellix HX app. Once the file is acquired using the get file action, we further analyze the same file in IVX and decide whether that is malicious or not. If the file is malicious on that asset, then the next step is basically an approval step. The approval step lets the user provide a manual intervention in the workflow. If there's something that if an action is being taken which is critical, then a human intervention can be added here. With the approval step, approval is provided in the workflow and it gets on the whole state while execution and waits for the user's approval to take any specific action. For example, in this case, if the asset needs to be isolated, an approval step has been added. Only when the approval is provided is when the asset is isolated, and you can further add some actions on the communications to the user, and that's how the workflow can be executed. Now let's run this workflow with the parameters that have been passed. I'll hit on run, and that automatically takes you to the execution page. What you see here is that it shows you what actions are currently getting executed. Since these actions are supposed to be executed in parallel, they got executed, and based on what is the response pass, if it is true, then it follows the further steps. And you will be able to see the parameters, what are the inputs provided and what are the outputs that have come out of that particular execution. As you can see in the screen. So this is how an execution can be occurred, and it can be done. It can do a job that can take hours sometimes, and that reduces the times to just minutes or even seconds. So that's how the execution is done. This is all about how we have done the workflow execution. There is another interesting thing that is coming up in the product soon after this release is the rule-based mapping, which will allow the users to auto-trigger workflows by mapping them to the rules. Within Helix, we will allow the users to map the workflows to rules. That means when that rule triggers an alert, it will either map the workflow as a recommendation, or it automatically triggers the workflow based on the configuration that the analyst has made. So this is how hyperautomation works independently and within Helix. To wrap up, as you've seen today, our hyperautomation platform empowers analysts to build, integrate, and execute workflows simply and powerfully directly from the Helix interface. This helps make your security operations faster, more efficient, and more proactive. I will give it back to you, Grant, to cover the rest of the slides. Thank you.
Thanks, Shreya. Just to expand on that a little bit more and wrap up here, I think you get most of the points here of what hyperautomation is intended to do for you. Obviously with the user interface you saw, analysts of multiple levels would be able to use this. This isn't something that's dependent on a coding background or somebody that has a lot of trained expertise here. So obviously the ability to integrate is going to help you connect and get more out of the tools that you already own. So you can drive these workflows, as you saw, not just with Trellix tools, but also with your third-party tools. And one of the things that's unique about the Trellix Hyperautomation solution is these workflows can be used with similar tools. So let's say, for example, you create this automation with a certain tool provided by a certain vendor, and then for whatever reason, you switch vendors. You don't have to rebuild that completely. You can take that existing workflow that you've created and then apply it to the new vendor or the new tool. So a lot of other solutions will require you to rebuild that from scratch. And at the end of the day, it's all about making you more efficient. So if you add up, this was just one example, but add up and think of the multiple examples that are probably in your own mind of things that could be applied day in and day out. That's hours and hours of savings a day, a week. So last thing I want to encourage you to do is, if you want to see this for yourself, you can go to this link, or you can scan this QR code on the screen, and you can request a demo, and one of our experts will reach out and set that up with you. So for specific questions you have that we're not able to address today, or you just want to see it and kind of ask your questions as a demo runs, when we can do that for you. So like I said, feel free to either copy this link or scan the QR code that's on the screen, and we will get that set up for you. With that, I will hand it back over to Nick, and we'll go through the Q&A. Over to you, Nick.
Thanks, Grant and Shreya. As a reminder for everyone, Trellix Education Services offers exceptional training to go along with our award-winning products. If you would like to learn more, please visit the website listed on your screen to see all of our offerings. Now let's get our Q&A session started. I see we have several questions, but it's not too late to add your question. Please type it in the Q&A window to submit. Additionally, take a moment to fill out the survey. Your feedback and suggestions are always appreciated.
All right, looking through the chat here. See one question here. This is probably a good one for you, Shreya. This is related to integration with other products. Are there plans to integrate hyperautomation with our EDR products?
Yeah. So hyperautomation product is going to be available as a standalone on-premise offering, as well as it is going to be natively integrated and bundled with Helix, and as well as in NDR too. And we have plans to integrate it with EDR as well. But more importantly, hyperautomation itself will have integrations within it for all the EDR products, EDR, EDRF, EDO, and not only just EDR products, but also other Helix products. That way, you can use those integrations in the workflows in hyperautomation to automate and take actions on those EDR or any other Helix products as well.
Perfect.
Got it. Thank you. And apologies, guys. I think we're hitting some technical difficulties. My mic dropped out for a second. Thank you, Grant, for taking that question. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. I do see a couple other questions about kind of availability. When is it available? How is it available? So I'll take that, and maybe, Shreya, you can add on anything you think I'm missing. But we are rolling this out now, actually, hyperautomation, and it'll be available globally next week. So that is the second week of October, and it's going region by region right now. So we are in the process of making it generally available to everybody. It will be available as part of Helix. So the licensing for that we'll announce. If you're an existing Helix customer, you'll be seeing some more about that in the near future. But it'll also be available in a standalone feature for people that have a little bit of a different environment and might need that that package versus Helix. So a couple of options there, but we are rolling it out now.
Got it. That's perfect. Thank you for that one, Grant. I really appreciate that. I think that's all the questions that we've got here in the Q&A box on our side. I want to thank everyone for joining today's webinar, and a big thank you to our speakers, Grant and Shreya. As a reminder, a link to today's recorded presentation will be emailed to all registered attendees. This concludes today's webinar. Stay safe, everyone.